Greetings and welcome back to One Dark Universe, the podcast where we focus on our inner work and our inner journey. I'm your host, Howard Cosmo Palmer, and always, as your inner space archaeologist, I'm here to share. Today's guest is Kasia, the plant-based diva. She's fit and over 40. She focuses on health and wellness and even lifestyle branding around a plant-based diet, everything. Now, to me, I think that takes a lot of inner work. And again, on this podcast, I'm about that, like shining the light into the darkness. So, Kasia, without further ado, the plant-based diva, please tell us a little bit about yourself, if not a lot of it, and what makes you so excited about your journey and who are you? Let us know.
Cosmo, thank you for having me. I have to say that for me, this journey started a long time ago. It started when I was about 17 years old. And my mom, she had diabetes, she had everything. Diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. I knew about other aunts and uncles, my grandmother, having these things, one thing or another. And one day my mom said, your uncle has diabetes. And he was the
Mm,
baby of the family. He was their youngest brother. So it was the last one. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, does that mean I'm next? I'm one of the oldest cousins. And I
right.
said, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Mm,
And for me, before I even really understood the power of spoken word, the power of manifestation, the power of speaking to yourself and putting it out there in the universe, I did it without realizing
mm,
what I was doing. I said, I'm not going to get sick. I'm not going to
mm,
do that. And for me, that decision was there. I think, when I think back, I know that I planted that seed. And from there going forward, when I think about the different milestones that led me to who I am now, identifying myself as the plant-based diva, was like everything. Once I put it in the universe, everything started coming my way. It was
yeah.
interesting how I never, over the course of those years, almost 40 years ago, 40, I'm 45, 20 something years ago, I didn't meet people that said, hey, you should try a carnivore diet. Hey, you should, do this. You should, do all these things that are, from my perspective, detrimental to our health. Always met people along the path that guided me more and more and more to this plant-based life that I live right now.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Take a moment for those guides. Life is one big road with a lot of signs. I'd like to say that. I didn't come up with that. That's definitely a reggae thing. And you said something I wanted to double down on how you found yourself, and using my words, but like you always found the signs enough to listen to them, so when you notice the history in your family, you saw that as a flag or a sign or a signal to be like, hey, I need to take charge of this right now or be prepared for something I don't want. Obviously that's a leader mindset and that takes practice because you even said it wasn't something that you experienced in your environment. You didn't find people your age. I'm 45 as well. And it's like, I would agree. Living out here in the mountains, I found myself really aware of how I didn't have certain things intentionally or unintentionally that I had to create intentionally so that I can move forward. So I wondered how important was that to you, or did you notice those signs from, like life or the universe that guided you, and where did you gain that confidence to kind of do it alone? Because sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah, I think it was signs that, even sometimes I didn't even realize in the moment that that's what it was.
Mm,
It was looking back and saying, "Hey, that was another moment where it came to me and I saw it, I took it, I ran with it." I would say, as you know, I wrote a book. Your body is
yeah.
speaking to you. Are you listening? And one of the things that I mentioned in there was my dislike for dairy milk. Never liked it. I never liked it. And I just didn't. And I went through all the things that came with it. Teachers saying, why aren't you drinking it? You need to drink it. Other people
Mm,
around me drinking it. And I just couldn't get with the program. And years later, in my research, in talking to other people, I find that, hey, this thing is not really good for us anyway. And I realized that that was another sign that, perhaps a lot of people aren't paying attention to. Just the simple fact that I just something about it just said this is not, it doesn't work for me. And you said doing it alone. It was a lonely journey for the most part for many, many years. A lot of people did not understand that. They didn't understand, why don't you like milk? What's wrong with you? Because culturally that's what we were told we were supposed to have. When I said, I don't know, something is wrong with chicken and beef. It just doesn't seem right to me. And people would say,
Mm,
don't gross me out. I don't want to know about these things. And, so I was uniquely placed in that, and for my immediate circle, I was doing it alone. But I can't say that I was completely alone because I would just meet people randomly, random places, and they would strike up. I'm a very shy person. I'm very introverted. Well, when you know me, I open up and, I can be more extroverted, but in
extroverted
the
introvert. Extroverted introvert, they say.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. In the immediate, I'm very quiet. I'm very observant. I don't say anything, but people will strike up conversations with me. And, one day I was leaving the gym and this guy just walked up to me and he was like, "Hey, have you heard of plant-based?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And, we had that conversation. And so I still became a magnet for people who believed in those same things and they just
mm,
kind of came my way. And so I never felt alone. I always knew that there were people, there were resources, and I always, it would be on my social media feed. It would be top view on YouTube. And I'm like, who's this person?
mm,
And so it wasn't exactly alone, but, and then I would say my circle has widened, my circle of people who also believe. And it actually started with my children. They're watching their mom do this. Now, 3 out of 4 of my kids are also plant-based and they have told, their family and friends, I don't eat that. And then their friends would say, "Oh, yeah, I kind of don't like this anyway. And I keep trying to tell my mom that I don't want to eat this or
mm.
that." And, so while they're in school, they have friends who are also like, "Yeah, I'm plant-based too." So it's a growing circle.
That's good. That's good. And a lot of it comes from community. There's a lot of sayings around that. A community is what really helps anything grow, or even create history in an effective way. Um, Tell us more about, I know you're the plant-based diva and you have a health and wellness brand, is it? What
Yes.
is that all about?
So I coach other people, and it started with my posting constantly about being plant-based. I think a lot of people watched me when I was 189 pounds, and I changed my diet, changed my lifestyle, and they're seeing the progress, and people would inbox me. And so I said, well, I want to know more. I don't want to misinform anyone. And so I took courses. I watched plenty of online people in the plant-based community, listen to what they're saying, dig deeper into those research. When they say, make sure you type in this behind your research so you can get the real information, I would do that. And I started compiling information. So now a lot of it is here, but I
Hmm.
do have the resources. If someone says, if they ask something that I may have forgotten about or something a little bit unique, I can go to my notes and say, oh yeah, 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 this is what you need to do to work on that. But yeah, it's just been like I said, once you get to know me, I start talking, people think that I'm unique in that I say, I'm plant-based, I don't eat these things. And so they want to know, well, if you don't eat meat, then what do you do for protein? If you don't eat this, what do you do for that? I was recently invited to a photo shoot and it's going to be a full weekend. And they're asking me, well, what do you eat? Because,
Right.
you know,
What should be
what
there for
should
you?
we have for you? They say, the biggest thing that a lot of people say is, do you eat fish? And I'm like, oh, it's not a plant. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, what do you mean? What grows on the trees and the bushes and out of the ground that we can eat? And that's it.
I mean, in that case, you would eat anything that eats grass, so which is a cow, which is all those things. So yeah, it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. If you don't eat meat, then what? But no, you're right. There are different variations to it. And in your story, it seems like your journey was personal. Like you looked at yourself, you looked at your diet, you looked at your weight, and then you started deciding. And through that decision, it was easy to kind of reinforce it. So when people came to you, it wasn't hard to share because you weren't making it up, you were living it. You know, you said it's all mental, but it seems like it's also a part of your discipline. I see a lot of your online content is really shared on the lifestyle. Like, this is me out here doing it. So you mentioned the book, My Body is Calling. Are you listening? What sparked the book? Is the book a reflection of the lifestyle?
Yes, it is. Your body is speaking to you. Are you listening?
Speaking.
And it is a reflection of the lifestyle. It is, and I'll tell you where that started. I was having a conversation with a friend, and I said to him, I don't understand when people are, say, overweight or experiencing pain. I said, do they not realize that that's their body speaking to them, telling them something is wrong and you need to fix
Mm,
it? And he said, that'll be a great title for your book, right? And I said, okay, yeah, I never really thought about that. And so I took the information that I had already been working on, compiling for a book, and I made some adjustments because I was really passionate about the messages that our body is sending. And so in the
mm,
book, I share stories of how I got started, things that have happened along the way to lead me to this point, and the things that I paid attention to, and giving people insight into their own bodies. Listen to what your body is saying to you. Are you experiencing pain? Are you seeing that, you're craving certain things? Are you seeing that you have an aversion to certain things? And,
right.
you just paying attention to those little cues and starting to respond to your body's messages.
Positive, and a lot of that is needed. I think, well, I know for sure I'm definitely into that idea of wellness through physical fitness and listening to your body. We all have our history and our story, and I think it's important to know it and be able to rewrite it and be able to understand and accept that it is your story. So with that saying, it could be as magical as you want it to be, and non-magical, like it's literally in your hands. And sometimes that can be a heavy weight to understand, like knowing that you can change your life without holding on to the past so often. Your book is definitely a testament to your past and your current journey. What does it offer your future journey? Like, where are you going with all of this? Is it just this is it now that you're here, one, two, three, or do you plan to take it, further?
I do plan to take it further. So it has sparked my drive to write more because
Mm,
there's so much more to listening to what is inside of us. And a lot of people, I think they need to hear this in as many platforms as they can. So I intend to do more talks,
mm,
workshops. I have more books on the way, even one for teenagers, because I was 17. I was 17 when
yeah.
he said something's got to give. And so I know that it's going to be valuable even in those teen years. I have a fitness app where they will
Mm,
coaching as well as, health coaching as well as fitness coaching. And so, yeah, I do intend to continue on this path, share the information with as many people as possible. I am highly passionate about women over 40
mm,
because it looks different for us. And that was a turning point for me, knowing that it looks different after 40. I learned somewhere, I can't remember because it's 5 years into 40, but I did learn somewhere that, your mindset says, I'm going to do what I did when I was, say, 20 something. And I know I was smaller. I know I was losing weight. And we've gone through so much with our mindset, our bodies, our diet. Things just look different for most people. We have children now. You may have a partner in your life. You may have career going on, and it's just simply different. And so our body's going to respond differently. And so my deepest passion is for women over 40 so that they can understand what it takes, because once that switch was on for me, it was, it was powerful. It was magical. There was no going back, because I had the keys, I had the answers, and, and so that's where I really see it going. I intend to
mm,
be 80 years old and still being able to get on a bike and ride, climb a tree and all of that, and I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, people may talk about their death or aging or whatever. And I tell my kids,
mhm,
I'm gonna be like 126 when I go. I'm gonna be here for
yeah.
quite some time, And I even told them, said, the night before I go, I'm gonna be dancing at a party with my entire family, and you guys are gonna be like, "Wow, she lived a good she had fun last night." And, she was live. You wouldn't even know she was 126 years old. So I just intend for it to be, I can still move. My thing was, if I may, my grandmother, if I think back to when I was young, she was obviously in her 30s maybe, and she had arthritis really bad. She was moving slowly at many times, shuffling her feet, and she appeared older than she actually was. I'm 40 something years old.
Yeah,
I'm not moving the way my grandmother did. And, as I grew and I learned about, arthritis and all of these things, and I just said, I don't want to move like that 40 something. I don't even want to move like that at 80 something years old when I don't have to, A lot of people don't even know that. They don't know that one, these diseases are reversible, most of them, especially
hmm
if they're not too far gone, and they're preventable. We don't
hmm
have to look a certain way at a certain age. We don't have to move a certain way at a certain age. We can live with vitality, extreme vitality, and that's my goal.
positive. I hear a lot of past, present, future in it, and I kind of worded it in that way, and that's the importance of of a leader. I think a lot of what I'm hearing from you is that you've chose to lead your life. You want to be a leader in how you show up for yourself, even with everything you're putting out there, whether it's intentionally with the book or just you're saying it in practice. And so, do you practice any inner work like meditation? And what's that like for you?
Absolutely. I try to do it daily.
Mm,
Sometimes, life gets in the way. For example, when I wake up at, oh, wait a minute. I forgot something very important about waking up in the middle of the night. I was
mm-hmm,
taught that when you wake up in the middle of the night like that, that is the universe or God or whoever you pray to speaking to you. And there's a message
mm,
there and you need to listen. You need to ask for that message. And I forgot. And I posted, I hate when I wake up at 2 a.m. No, when I wake up
yeah,
at those times, that's my meditation moment. That's when I need to say, I'm listening. And so if that happens again tonight, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And, it's interesting. As I'm speaking to you, they're speaking to me. They're like, wait a minute, you forgot what you're supposed to do at 2 a.m.
yeah,
or 3 a.m., 4 a.m., when you wake up at those crazy hours.
mm-hmm,
When life gets crazy and I can't get it in, I make sure that I at least meditate on Sunday mornings. That is my
yeah,
thing. Up early. I'm an early bird anyway, but I do believe in meditating, taking that moment for yourself, quiet your mind, and just listen. Sometimes, that meditation is completely silent. Sometimes it is with music or sound. I do believe in mantras. I believe in speaking to the universe and asking for the things that I desire in life and also listening to the messages that are there for me. But for me, meditation is that's my me time. That's my me
yeah,
time to just silence everything and go inside myself and just listen. There's always a message, there's always something. And I teach this to other people. I have had several people they get it. I've had a few people say, I did not know what you were talking about waking up at 2 a.m. It's not that you're waking yourself up. You're just up. And it
mm-hmm,
happens night after night. And you're like, what is going on? Why can't I? And I told them, that's the universe speaking to you. You need to ask, what's the message? Sometimes you'll get it right away. Sometimes it'll happen later. It could even be, a month or two from now and you'll say, I I get it. I remember, that message came to me. Or you'll see the fruit of your listening show up
yeah.
at some time when that time is right. You'll know when that is happening.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it seems like you've got the whole package down, in relation to how you want to live your life on purpose. There is a lot of materials out there for everyone, but what I've come to learn too, in association to what you're saying, is not everything is for everyone, and you can't have everything. Learning how to choose what's best outside of what's good. Sometimes it's comfortable, but it doesn't mean it's the right choice to make. All those things are like, they can seem empowering, but then they could just seem like second nature based on habit, based on experience. And a lot of it is important we are, at least you and I in conversation, are in our 40s and growing up in the 80s and 90s like we did, coming up from a Caribbean background, understanding what it means to, what's that word I'm looking for? Let me see if I can remember it. To know how to code switch, to know how to be in different spaces on purpose and somewhat to be grown or to be raised by a community, you know, like all those things aren't necessarily as obvious today. If not, I don't know if they're like even practice. You have children, I have a daughter. Most of our teenage children grew up inside their homes. You know, maybe when they were younger, they used to ride their bikes and we used to take them to the park. But then society, conditions, COVID, whatever, showed up in ways that we weren't prepared for, but we found a way to adjust. And now, as examples between you and I, we are leaders in our own life. I run a meditation business. I focus on teaching people about mental health for the past 5, 6 years. I run classes, same, like because I live it. There's a song by Chronics, you do it for the love, you don't do it for the likes. You do it in a way that's like, it's just on purpose. I think in that though, like with your meditation example, there is just a silence. There is just a solemnness. It just is. The
Mhm.
water is still. There's no flowing or waves or ripples. And again, coming from a instant gratification society, always having these tools in front of us, always finding the cheat sheets or the code dumps, or we just really found a way to make things quote unquote good, but not necessarily best. And so now we're turning the tables and we're turning it around, and people like us, we're somewhat leading it again in our life, but then we're leading it for others. With all of that said, where are some of the difficulties you're finding to show up for yourself? If you could share, like we mentioned, or you mentioned, like the meditation, whether if that's a consistency or not, when you notice it, do you beat yourself up about it? Or if so, and then you move forward? Because some people, that's their biggest hurdle. Like they know they should do something and then they get into their heads, or they tell a loved one and then they say, yeah, that's a scam. You're dumb. And then all of a sudden they believe that. So how do you step through those demons or walk through those spaces,
You
if you
know,
care to share?
yeah, of course. I would say, my mom was the type of mom who never told us that we couldn't do something. I think
Hmm.
if we told her, something as preposterous as I'm going to walk to the moon, she would say something along the lines of, well, you will probably be that person that invents a way for people to get to the moon. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like she always let us believe that we could do anything. We never saw her beat herself up. And so it just isn't in me to do that.
Hmm.
And that's me in particular. I can't speak for my sisters because we all receive messages from the same person in different ways. But I can say for me, I just saw, a woman of strength and perseverance. And I picked that up subliminally and through the actual, messages
Literally,
you
yeah.
told us. Yes. And so I've never had those moments. I've never had, I've always been the type that, okay, that didn't work. What's next? Moving
Yeah.
on. Next thing. The best word that someone gave me, in fact, the same gentleman that gave me my book title, he said, people need to learn to give themselves grace. And I
Hmm.
said, I like that. I like that. And so that has been my thing, that it was just that defining word to explain what it is that makes me just keep going. And so when I'm teaching other people, I teach them that too. Give yourself grace. It's
Yeah.
okay. Yesterday is yesterday. Even if it was today, that hour, it was that hour, it's gone. And so that it's just something that was built in me to just say, everything is okay. Move on to the next thing. And I'm a Virgo. We plan things to the T. And so for me, I always have plan A, and B and C is already waiting. Like if A doesn't work, let's move to B. You know, um, And so because for me, it's easy to just, move on to the next thing. And some people don't understand it, even when it comes to relationships, they don't understand. How can you just, I mean, what am I supposed to do? But,
I
I,
get that.
I teach that to other people to just let's move forward. Let's look at what we can do the next hour, the next day, and the next week. And,
Mm,
I do hope that that message reaches people. I'm not there with my clients all the time. I know that some people may call me, when they are experiencing something. I encourage people to live in their truth, what is
hmm
happening right here, right now. And let's go from there. When it comes to their diet, I get people who, so for me, the biggest disappointment is when I get someone who says that they want to change their diet, their lifestyle, their mindset and everything, but then they tell me that they're already doing the things.
mm.
And I'm like, then why are you calling me, if you're already doing it? And then I can hear it.
Yeah, why is it worded that way? Yeah,
Right.
on
I
top of
can
that.
hear it in your communication in our weekly meetings that you're perhaps not doing those things. And I do try to encourage them. Like I'll give you one example. A gentleman I was coaching, he told me when we met, I already don't eat this, 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 this. And I'm like, well, if you have high blood pressure, it didn't come from nowhere, because he even included, I don't live a stressful life. And I'm like, sir, you know,
Right.
either you have high blood pressure from one of these things, or you're a healthy person and then maybe don't need my help in that area. Maybe some other area, but not in that area. And then as we, communicate weekly, he said, I went to a family event and of course everyone else still eats meat and everything. And I was able to resist it. And it just, I just didn't believe that he did. And I told him, I said, it's okay. And I've told him before, it's okay if you went to a family event and you did eat something, it already happened. Just commit to this whole week you're not going to do that, just make those changes going forward. And it's okay to be on that roller coaster. It's okay to yo-yo a little bit. I'm not saying give yourself permission to do it, but give yourself grace when it happens, and so
Yeah.
for me, that's always my biggest disappointment is when people are not truthful with me because I can't guide you from a place of deceit. Like it just, but I still, I forgive them as well. And I say, okay, next week will be better. And perhaps they will continue to listen and they will understand that,
hmm
it's a process, it's a journey, it's okay, you will get there. It was a process for me as well.
The same grace you give yourself, you give to others.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And
So
for the
that's
most
kind of
part,
how you,
I
yeah, and I was gonna say that's how you kind of step through the demons or step through those moments. And I use that word, that's my word, because I find those moments challenging on my own. A lot of my practice is self-involved, is self-reflective, and I intentionally share it with others, but I don't have a client base intentionally. I don't want to help you if you're not ready to help. I don't have my hands held out in that way. I've yet to practice that effectively. But once you're on that level and you're ready to make that fence like that gentleman or like your mindset to that gentleman, now we're working together. And I applaud anyone who's positioned to do that. I kind of gear anyone who's interested in meditation towards people who wants to hold their hands, but if they're looking for support around already existing material and guided help, and stuff that they're intentionally trying on their own, like they're going to carve out time in their day, then my free audios are available and I can meet up with you one on one. But to that same point, you kind of have to still allow people to make that decision and somewhat reinforce it for them. And I think that's a somewhat challenging and rewarding space in both breath. When someone actually gets it and you're like, yes, yes, they got it. And then when they're still challenged, you're like, all right, tell me more about it.
we can help them build when we know where they're building from. What is your foundation? And
Yeah.
then I can help you, guide you, but they also have to come ready. You know what I mean? Because we can't give them everything, you have to want it. You have to want it.
Yeah, and you can't have everything, right? It's too much of an overload.
Yeah.
All right, Kasia, is there anything else I didn't get to see your book. Please share with the
So
viewers and the listeners your book.
this is,
Positive,
I
Your
guess,
Body is Speaking.
You can type in Your Body is Speaking to You on Amazon. There will be more platforms available. We are local readers can find it in Second and Charles. I'm working on the big guy in Barnes and Noble, but we'll get there. But it will soon be on Apple and Google.
All the other audio, what is it? All those platforms.
Yes, I have
Yeah,
someone. Well, I have two people auditioning to do the
right.
Audible. Yes, and
Man, I should have auditioned for that. I'm terrible. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
there are multiple platforms as well. So there's the ebook, if someone is interested
Mm,
in the book. There's a hardcover. So there's a hardcover and a journal separate. And then this particular book right here, this has the journal in the back. So someone can buy the book and it
wonderful.
has the journal attached with it. And then so it gives you daily work that you can do for yourself to help you focus on listening to your body.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing so much on top of that. Kasia, I know we can find you on all these social platforms as the Plant-Based Diva. And again, I wish you the best in your journey. We've known each other over these years, and here we are on the similar path, but navigating it intentionally. And I hope the viewers, the listeners, and the watchers can find a resonance, or a base for themselves too, that wherever you are, just because you're strong doesn't mean you lift heavy things. It's good to find support around that. Consider a plant-based diet. I would definitely recommend it as well. I would always say drink water, alkaline water, osmosis water, watermelon, anything that hydrates the body on purpose. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Thanks so much for coming to the podcast, One Dark Universe. We are here always. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, listeners, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.